Okay, I might be beating a dead horse here, or I may have already made my point here, but third video now on a similar topic to this that I've been talking about last couple videos. I'll link to those below. But Neville Goddard talks about embodying the untarnished versus the tarnished state in his lecture, The Secret of the Sperm. He's talking about how basically all states are available. And I was saying in the last few videos, I said this there, I think also, that the frequency that you're broadcasting, this makes perfect sense what Esther Hicks says about this. The state that you're in, which is the frequency that you're broadcasting, will bring about that which is an exact match for that frequency through you, through the actions that you are inspired to take based on what you are receiving in that state. Neville Goddard says we don't have free will other than in choosing the state and choosing the frequency, because you're compelled to do certain things. You see certain things, you think certain thoughts, depending on what state you're occupying, depending on what frequency you're at. And Neville talks about being very careful about what that is. And I wanted to make a point here, which is the reason I'm making this video, that we think of like high frequency, low state, high state, whatever. You can absolutely be broadcasting a tarnished high frequency vibe. And a lot of people watching this channel are experiencing this. And maybe this will help to explain your situation to you, maybe in a way that you can hear. And I'm speaking from experience here. You can be at a great place while still broadcasting a tarnished, mostly high vibe frequency. Whatever's in this frequency is what is going to come. So it's through you. This isn't magic. If you are in a great place in your life, but you still have a totally backwards perception about anything, about something having to do with you, about what something in the external is going to provide for you. If you have that, I'm repeating myself for the 10,000th time here. This whole channel is about this, but you can be essentially in a great place and have one thing about you that is just really off, and that's the frequency you're broadcasting. You're broadcasting the frequency of, I'm awesome, but I'm not good enough to get this thing I want. I am a raging success. I'm more successful than everyone I know. I can do anything, but I believe that I'm actually not worthy of having the thing I want. That's a specific frequency. It's a specific state. Think about it. It's just the state that you're in. And you could look at your life and say, I'm in this great state. I have this high vibe frequency. Why am I not able to get a partner that matches with this? Why am I not, I feel great about myself. I have this great partner and I have this great body and I have this great family, but I just no matter what I do, I'm a failure at not being poor. You can be in that vibe. That can be the frequency you're broadcasting. That can be the state you're inhabiting. That can be how you're feeling. And that's the tarnished state Neville's talking about. It can be a generally overall good frequency that you're walking around in, but this little part of it is tuning it slightly to have this flawed thing continue to show up in your reality. And that is where I think the intentional exploration of that is incredibly beneficial. It's not, and by the way, I was really confused about this when I was, because I've been really into Esther for the last month. I've been really just vibing. I've been high vibing with everything she's saying. I've been just getting it. I'm like, she's right. And I'm like, but how does everything that I talk about on my YouTube channel fit into this? If I was thinking about trying to ask her that while I was there, but I was like, I don't want to know the answer. I already know, I know that what I'm talking about here is a part of this, and I don't quite understand how, but I know it is. And the way I was looking at, exploring the beliefs that you have that are creating negative things in order to get rid of them, in order to discover the source and change which the only purpose of that is so that you can look at it from a different perspective and realize that you drew the wrong belief from it. That's the whole point. I've looked at that as that is like a permanent vibe upgrade. It's a permanent state upgrade. You live in a different state effortlessly all the time when you change a belief that is causing things you don't want or causing you to feel worse all the time. You feel better all the time when you get rid of one of those. Sometimes it's not huge. Sometimes it's like night and day. But no matter what, it's like removing that little flaw from your frequency. And I was like, why is this never talked about? Because it really isn't talked about much. And it's just been, without it, I don't know where I would be. I can't see how just trying to like feel, I feel like it would have been the same thing either way. And really it kind of was, because I elevated my vibration essentially overall by achieving these great things in my life, and then believing in myself enough to realize that I could solve all of my problems that I could had obvious control over. That rose the vibe, and that's what put me in this place where I was like, this part of my life doesn't fit. It led me to understand this thing about myself that had to change naturally. It wasn't forced. It was sort of like a natural next step from being in that higher place. And I was just like, why is this not being talked about at all? And I think the reason it isn't is because it encourages a lot of people to wallow. It encourages a lot of people to focus on negative, to focus on the things they don't want, to focus on bad things, bad feelings. And so it may be terrible advice for a lot of people. That may be why it's not talked about very much. For me, it was perfect. It was exactly what I needed. And it was what I had avoided for 40 years, But at the end of the book, The Law of Attraction, Esther Hicks's book, The Law of Attraction, like one of the very last, it's like the whole book is like a Q&A. It's just like questions and Abraham's answer, right? Or whatever. So at the end, there's a question that says, what if I just keep thinking a negative thought, And they say, you may need to look deeper into that to see why that is. Bam. So basically, you can be the point of this video, you can be in a really good place. And I think this is what brings a lot of people to the search that ends up in Law of Attraction, Neville, which is the exact same freaking thing. Anybody who tells you Law of Assumption and Law of Attraction are significantly different is not experienced enough to be talking about it. Remember that. I think that's what brings people to this, is just something that continuously doesn't happen over and over again. Like everything, it's like you've applied this whatever your approach to life is that's working, you've applied it all over, you've tried it with you've gotten as good as you can get, and then there's this area that is just like really not working and you can't figure out why. And that's where there's a belief in there. And sometimes it's not just a belief, it's like a total orientation, a complete orientation that has to just twist. And that seems like a huge deal. But I can tell you that the right understanding can twist your worldview 180 degrees overnight, without you spending months at a therapist's office or reading 1,000 books. The right perception shift can do that for you instantaneously, and then you're like on a bullet train forward, and everything just changes. I was just talking about this with my ex. He's kind of having one of these right now, and in a way, and it was confirmed, he's basically having the same experience. I had this experience in 2019 when I realized that I had decided wrongly, essentially, that it's so cheesy. I basically had blamed myself for my dad leaving and my parents getting divorced, which kids do. And if you don't frame it that way in your mind, you'll be like, no, I'm not blaming myself for it. Like, basically my entire adult life, I was like, well, I don't know, I'm not at fault for it. That was between them. But, I wasn't really too difficult, he wasn't leaving much behind. You know, that's what I thought about myself. If that is in there and you're thinking something like that, that's one of those things where you don't even realize the impact that's having on your life because it is so pervasive. It's so all-encompassing. To have a thought, like a belief like that about yourself, you don't even realize the way that that's affecting everything. You don't realize the way that no matter what you're doing, you're going to be no matter how your high vibe your frequency is, you're going to be broadcasting a tarnished state, and that is going to be reflected for sure. And you know, honestly, if you feel like you have no clue what that could be, I would really, I would, you know, write your life story down on paper. Just write down the high and the low points, and it's going to be in there. That would be my guess. It's going to be in there, and it's going to be the thing that you feel like you were least affected by, that you should have been affected by a lot. It's usually, you know, it's usually sitting right there in plain view. These things are hidden in plain view. That is how much you're unable to see something when you are tuned incorrectly. I hope this channel is helping people. You know, I think I'm gonna find a way to, because I've figured out now that subscriber count on YouTube is just an absolutely rotten measure of whether or not of something's value, which is really hard to actually accept. But I keep seeing stuff that these channels that get huge subscriber counts, the more I see some of these, the more I'm like, well, I can never ever measure anything that way. So I think I'm gonna have to figure out some way to start counting people that can tell me that something on this channel actually like gave them a major beneficial life insight, because that is all I ever need to hear. And I've heard that many times now, but I don't, you know, I need a measure. Like I need to come up with how many people have to say that before I feel like this was, you know what I mean? Really, it should just be one. If it's really, if this channel gives anybody the experience that leads anybody to the experience that I had in 2019, where everything flips on its head and goes from being, it's like living on a different planet. It's like you were in a hellscape and now you're in a world of infinite possibility where you're like happy most of the time. If I can assist in that, in any way, then this was totally worth it. And I am going to link to, there's a website called Baggage Reclaim, and it's a UK, I think it's baggagereclaim.u. I'll find it and link to it. This website had a lot of articles on it, and it was where I finally saw something on there that was the immediate event before I had this major revelation. Reading this thing about obsession, what obsession was, and that it had to do with childhood abandonment, was the thing that flipped me. And so I want to credit this site. I'm going to link to it. I'll find it. It's full of a lot of, a lot of articles about what is reasonable behavior to expect from, it's really like good for people who don't, it's like women that don't respect themselves and that don't understand what is reasonable to expect from a relationship, and that don't that have a hard time not blaming themselves for the way they are treated. This website is full of articles that have to do with that. And if you're in any way like suffering from something like that, you might find something of value there. I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing to place in conjunction with law of attraction type of stuff, or law of assumption, or anything like that. But you know what? Sometimes you need what you need until you can get where you need to go. And this was one of the things that really helped me. There were a few articles on this site, first of all, that helped me identify that I really needed to get out of the relationship I was in prior to this thing in 2019, this shift. And then I did a Google search and saw something about this obsessive loop I was going through that was the immediate insight that provided me with the insight that gave me this flip. That came from her website. I Googled it and I saw it. I'm like, oh, it's that chick's website. And then that's what did it for me. So I'm not saying that this is going to be useful to anybody, but I'm just saying I'm going to link to that because I've certainly never expressed to that person that they were the conduit through which I went from one state to another in a major way, because I didn't really credit her with it. I was like, well, I did this essentially. I found this, I took this, I used it, I made the connection, because I did, but still, you know what I mean? That person putting her work out there was part of the bridge of it, provided a brick in the bridge that got me there. So I'm going to link to that. Anyway, that is all. Have a great day.